Clicking on the live button.
Clicked.
What's up, gamers? What's up? Are we even broadcasting? I guess we are. I'll assume that we are. Let me close my tabs so my internet is not. What's up, nerds? What's up, gamers? This is the man, and the other guy is the same man from the last episode, and the guy on the button that has no face, that's Snek. You might know him from Jay's streams, my streams, where we destroyed Taylor Marshall. We didn't destroy Taylor Marshall, but where we critiqued him. Lewis, the same guy as well. And today we're going to spend, I think, 2 or 3 hours talking about random stuff. And you're going to listen because you have no friends, and we are your replacement friends. That's how podcasts work, right? So happy 4th of July for all the burgers. I'm not going to make a lame, because I think everyone's sick of it. I'm not going to make a lame joke like, "Oh, you're a missionary country." I think everyone knows it at this stage. I think that's just, I don't think that has a point. So because Europe was helping that, so it's not just America. But happy 4th of July. I hope America successfully does not become a BLM wasteland. Inshallah. That's all I'm gonna say.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. May Allah guide us. By the way, saying Allah in Syriac, Allah refers to God even before Islam. So I'm not inserting Islamic language. Some people might wonder why, like you said. So I'm just covering my bases here. What do you guys want to add about 4th of July? What do you like about 4th of July?
As a Frenchman, you're welcome, I guess. Like, yeah, maybe not the intended result.
Yeah.
As an Englishman, I'm very disappointed that you would abandon monarchy like that. I mean, we all know monarchy is the best form of government, so it was kind of a silly move, I think. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really not all that invested.
And as a Turk, I welcome America for becoming Turkey version 2. In some sense, because it's funny because Turkey is very much like America. There's a civic Turkish identity, like American identity, but it's not an actual tangible ethnic identity. It's like different ethnic identities even within white people. Like Turkey, you have people acting like they are Central Asians, when in reality they're all like native Anatolians, Greeks, Armenians, Middle Easterners. So congrats for becoming the second version of the Ottoman Empire, I guess. that's what I like about America. It reminds me a lot about Turkey in some senses.
Yeah,
we got Conrad hitting with that inshallah. So I'm Islamicizing
that AVI looks because really that's cool. I've not seen that AVI.
Rolf Groiper.
Literally with an Episcopal mitre.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. What I've been doing the last couple of days. If you haven't seen my review of Bronze Age Mindset, check that out. I had a lot of fun making that. Did any of you check it out before I move on?
It was 2 hours long, so I was like, I don't know if I can tolerate watching a 2-hour-long video. But if you want me to, I'll watch
especially. It. Well, the first hour is basically me being unable to speak properly, but the second hour is really fun. Like I have like Alex Jones moments where I'm like ranting really hard, and I think that people like that. I think that should have been the first hour so more people will see it. But whatever. What does inshallah mean? Everyone uses that word in my group chats. What kind of group chat?
It means God willing. He's in Muslim group chats.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just joking around.
Or maybe it's in Antiochian group chats.
Chad.
You're sick? Oh, that's so. Like the first chapter, first COVID. Episode. If you want to ask questions, say anything interesting, we will highlight it and we will either make fun of you or we will praise you. Most of the time we will praise you, but sometimes we'll make fun of you maybe. In good.
It depends on the IQ check. It depends on the IQ check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think I saw his comment. Yeah, that was My group chat is heretic vibe check. Yeah, I think you got really into. I don't know. I actually didn't. I'm not a Baptist. Like I know a lot of people that are like Baptist dudes. Like I don't know if you guys know. Maybe you know Lewis and Snek because you guys are on Twitter. But there's the guy himself, Bronze Age Pervert, and there's like the mini versions of him. Like he has 40K followers, and there's like 5K follower mini versions of him. And then one of them is a Christian, the other is an atheist, the other is a pagan, whatever. Like, or the one is a Catholic. And like that's most of my interaction actually with him. I didn't really know his tweets or nevertheless. Did you read Metropolitan Ticon's 4th of July
No,
address?
is it based?
No.
Was it based?
We can read it here right now if you want. I think you can put the screen up in. Because I remember seeing it. Metropolitan Ticon. 4th of July. Have you seen it, Snek?
No, I think I've seen people talking about it, but basically it was like, yeah, like you're American. That's that's your culture, so embrace it. Maybe I'm thinking about another one, but yeah, I believe it was more on these lines.
So, Lewis, hold up. I think you should screen share because my internet's bad, but I think yours will work. So I'll send you on Discord the address, and we can like kind of just go over it and what it's like. Because none of us
Do
have
you want me
read
to
it.
share my screen?
Yeah, I sent you the link. So
Okay.
it's Metropolitan.
I hope I can share my screen.
Yeah, and before you share the wrong screen.
I don't have any wrong screens to share, to be fair.
Nice.
I can't see where. Okay, so that does that. It's not giving me the option, bro.
Someone is saying. Okay, so Abbot Trifon's was good. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's true. It was Abbot
Here we go.
Trifon's.
Share screen. Share screen.
Yeah, Metropolitan's was not.
Oh yeah,
Can you see my screen now?
All right.
it is.
Yeah. Bro, you're leaking the secrets.
Yeah, I am. I'm leaking all the secrets. I'm actually literally just making sure I haven't got anything scandalous.
Don't search P.
Don't worry.
I'm just
I don't
kidding.
do. I haven't done that in
I
many
sent
a year.
you it on Discord.
Oh, it's on Discord.
I sent you it's on Discord.
Wow. All my.
Who are you chatting with? I gotta see. I gotta pause the video.
I hope no one pauses. All right. To the honorable clergy, venerable
Yeah.
monastics, and pious faithful of the Orthodox Church in America, my beloved Christian brethren and blessed children in the Lord, I wish you all a happy and safe 4th of July. As this Independence Day comes in the midst of a viral pandemic and renewed social tensions, it is fitting to recall that the fundamental principle that we celebrate today is that all men are created equal. Let us joyfully let freedom ring as we celebrate this American principle. Yet we must admit our nation remains in travail, struggling to give birth to a society in which all are treated as equals. Despite some progress, racism has not been fully stamped out. As the church in which there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, we oppose racism, for we believe that all are one in Christ Jesus.
Right.
Crucially, evils such as racism are only stamped out when each of us individually takes responsibility for his or her actions. Each of us has the independence of free will to choose to do good or evil. The claim that groups are responsible for evil rather than individuals is a claim which risks ignoring individual free will. Oh, maybe he's giving he's chucking a bone. We must search out the evil in our own hearts and labor to remove it, and then let Christ enter and take his place in our hearts, and then we will see our social change. We take responsibility for the evil we contribute to, and then act responsibly to make Christ's kingdom present now through our words and deeds, and change will happen. For the meaning of being created in the image of God, of all men and women being created equal, is that each of us has freedom of will, and it's only through each of us freely choosing to do the good works which God has prepared in advance for us to do that evil will be stamped out in society, bit by bit in society. So this Independence Day, let us remember that freedom is not just an American ideal, but a sacred responsibility given to each of us through our God-given free will. We are each independent to do what we may will, but through following the example of Christ, may each of us do the will of his Father, always, this day, and every day. Loving Christ, Tikhon, Archbishop of Washington.
The only part is that, well, I think the part where he said he threw a bone, I like that. Like the claim that groups are responsible for evil rather than individuals. It
That
is
groups
it
that
is
groups aren't
somewhat
responsible for
decent.
evil. I think he's
Yeah, so
making a reference to
it's
the
kind
fact
of
that
like to the fact that a lot of people are like, "Die, Whitey! I hate you, white people! Fuck white people!" And he's kind of commenting on that crowd because that's becoming very normalized. Um, his understanding of there is neither Jew nor Greek is, I don't know. That's kind of strange because I think it's kind of like, isn't it the opposite? Isn't it affirming in some sense? Like it's like, I mean, for example, it also says there's neither man or woman, there's neither slave nor free. So, but Saint Paul says there are slaves and there are free men. So it was strange, but nevertheless,
Yeah,
the
I
rest
think
it's
I
okay.
think
It's like
let's
it's like
be
a
charitable. Let's be charitable. I think he's just saying that we're all created in the image of God. So yeah, despite the fact that we may have distinctions in race and in gender and things like that, the common denominator is the fact that we're all made in the image of God, or perhaps for us that we're all Orthodox Christians is the hegemonic is what should be the Christ should be the unifying point.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Snek?
So with that in mind, yeah, I agree.
What I think is that, I mean, this declaration seems all right by itself, but we should be careful not try not to fall into this pit of entering politics and believing that we as a church have a duty to do worldly politics, because that's absolutely not what we have to do. Christ says he comes not to bring peace but a sword, and all these things, martyrdom, war, and so on, desolation. It's a consequence of the fall, and it will not be healed by humans politically. It will be healed in the eschaton by Christ. And these things are healed mystically, and that's why Christ says, "I do not bring peace; I bring you my peace." He says that the peace of Christ is with us, and this is like His kingdom. It's not a kingdom of this world. It's not a peace of this world. It's a peace in heaven, and that's why, for example, when you look at Saint Paul, it says that there is no Jew, no Greek, no free, no slave, but there are still slaves in the real world. You are freed in Christ, and we are preparing the eschaton where slavery doesn't exist, but by the contingency of the world, slavery exists. And if we look at the early councils, for example, the Council of Gangra, which was accepted by the Sixth Ecumenical Council, they clearly say, no, becoming a Christian doesn't free you from slavery. You still have to obey your master, just as Paul said. And it doesn't mean that we're inherently pro-slavery. It just means we are not meddling into what's happening in the world.
Yeah, Paul still says to seek your freedom.
Yeah,
like there's one of the books of the Bible writing to a slave owner to
and I think that's Philemon.
Yes, Philemon, exactly. He writes to Philemon telling him, take back the slave, but treat each other like human beings and
treat him like family, not even just individual, but like family as well. That's also very important. Snek, you will answer this question, I think. Yugan says, is it true that after Saint Vladimir the Great abolished capital punishment in Russia, bishops convened a council condemning this action, and as a result, the decision was... Is this true?
Yeah, the Patriarch of Constantinople did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good to see. I didn't know that. Which council is it? Like, how can we look up for more details?
This is something I've heard or I've read about in articles. I don't know if it cites anything in particular. These kinds of councils are usually kind of esoteric and difficult to find.
Yeah, I mean, even councils that are like important, like Yashi, right? Those are like hard to find, like the translation and what happened there.
Yeah.
Or Council of Jerusalem, Council of Constantinople, 1484. Like all of these are difficult to find.
Yeah.
And even like some ecumenical councils were difficult to find.
We don't have the acts or minutes for Nicaea or Constantinople 1.
We don't have the translated acts for Ephesus 1. But that's going to happen pretty soon. It's coming. Yeah, I'm going to be reading that. I'm going to enjoy reading beautiful 900 pages of bishops saying stuff. That's Well, that's how the young people spend their time nowadays.
Yeah, it's hip.
It is hip.
When we look at the death penalty in the Church Father, what's interesting is that, for example, I think Saint Basil didn't really like it, but he explains that some of the punishments, some of the canonical punishments of the Church, will be likened to the death penalty in the world. That doesn't mean that the Church kills people. It just says that this is, for example, if you kill someone, or if you do some things that in front of a jury will get you killed, and if you manage to not get killed and come back to the church, you're gonna get a penitence that's harsher on behalf of this. So what we say about the Church Fathers is that they live in the context and they accept it. Death penalty. If you like, death penalty was a thing for a while. Some Church Fathers are against it, but what's very interesting is that the people who are most against it are usually the very Gnostic ones. At the Tertullian, Origen was also against slavery at some point, if I remember correctly.
I'm in favor of the death penalty personally. I think that the government, in principle, maybe in practice, I may be reticent to allow the government to have that kind of power because of the state our governments are in nowadays. But in principle, I'm not opposed to it, and I would say that the church did undergo a kind of a transformative period. There's this historian called Tom Holland. He wrote a book recently called Dominion. He was like an atheist, or he still is an atheist, like secularist. But he wrote this whole book on how Christianity transformed the empire and stuff like that. And there's some important things to note, like there was a complete transformation of social ideals, like the way women were treated, the way infants were treated, because normally you just kill them if you didn't like them. And also, the Colosseum and gladiatorial combat was abolished and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, by the way, I sent you a DM, Lewis. I think we should read Abbot Trifon's letter, because I checked it out and it was pretty good. And in regards to death penalty, I think, first of all, it doesn't have a theological issue. It's not in contradiction, but at the same time, even in a practical sense, I look at it. I look at the issue from a practical standpoint. Now, today, I am kind of happy it's not normal, because if it was, I think it will be used in a very bad way. But in principle, I'm definitely for it. And my logic is kind of more simplistic. It's if you have certain crimes, and like if the punishment for certain crimes is high, that's just logically going to make other people less. They're going to want to do those crimes less. Like Singapore has huge punishments for even like slight crimes, and their crime rate is incredibly low. Even though they have an income inequality, their Gini coefficient is kind of up there. It's not high, but it's up there. And the thing about Gini coefficient is that if it's the higher it is, the higher the crime rate generally. But in spite of that, there's low crime in Singapore, and I think really those penalizations are doing huge for them. So we have Abbot Trifon's Stars and Stripes Forever, his letter.
I just like to throw in a good word for Abbot Trifon, because I remember when I was first becoming Orthodox and I was curious, like he was the first clergy I ever saw like a picture of online, and it really kind of intrigued me how he looked. I don't know, kind of ethereal. And he's got a Facebook page. He's got these really nice Christmas talks from back a few years ago, probably a fair few years ago now, but they're like his Christmas talks, like retreat talks, and they're really powerful. So I recommend listening to those. But anyway, so he's cool. So let's read this. He's OCA, by the way. Earlier today, it was announced that the statue of Christopher Columbus that has long stood before the state capitol in Columbus, Ohio, has been removed. But what really shocked me was hearing that they are now considering changing the name of their city, seeing Christopher Columbus as responsible for the genocide of indigenous peoples. That we Americans are allowing Antifa Marxists to dictate the destruction of national symbols of our history is unbelievable. That there are leftists demanding the removal of the presidential images of Mount Rushmore, the toppling of statues not only of Confederacy, but even of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, all in the name of social justice, is appalling to me. The fact that some of these Marxists have even gone so far as to demand all images of Jesus Christ and his Holy Mother be destroyed as symbols of white supremacy is beyond belief. See, I love this. He's specifically singling out Marxism as the problem. All this while the world is witnessing the triumphal rise of Orthodox Christianity in the country of Russia, with over 100 Orthodox churches built this year alone in Moscow. While Columbus, Ohio considers changing the name of their city, the Russians long ago returned to the name of St. Petersburg to their historic city, while dumping the communist-inspired Leningrad. As we celebrate our nation's founding on this 4th of July, the state of California has just announced that churches are forbidden to allow singing, all the while allowing for protesters in the streets to continue shouting their hate-filled protests throughout the state, not wanting, quote, not wanting to interfere with the First Amendment rights of her citizens, unquote. Added to the madness, we are witnessing the leftists demand that our nation's police departments be defunded or even completely disbanded. That these fine men and women who on a daily basis put their lives on the line, that all of us remain safe from violent intruders, thugs, and murderous individuals who care nothing about us average citizens, be free to continue their evil lawlessness. All this smacks of a Marxist plot to destroy the very Christian foundations of this country, while breaking down the economy, displacing every trace of our nation's history, all the while providing thousands of disgruntled young people, having lost all hope for their future, to angrily take the streets, demanding a bland one-world government devoid of every trace of our true heritage. With love in Christ, Abbot Trifon.
Yeah, pretty good. I don't have any additional comments to make. I think it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And Pervert asks, I'm going to share stream on Twitter. Is that okay? Yeah, that's completely fine.
No, you're absolutely forbidden.
No, you can't. You can't share my content. You're not allowed to.
Not
like
allowed.
You know how
we don't want our content
Twitter
shared.
artists do this. Like, oh, you can't share my art to people. You're not allowed. That's mine. That's mine. And that's what reminds me.
We'll add the paywall later. Right now we're starting it.
Yeah. If you pay me $50, I will say your name and do nothing else. I'll just say your name at the end of the stream and just like pass by. That's what I'm just kidding. But
Orthodox bathwater when?
And now I want to comment on this. When Hagia Sophia is retaken, the four minarets will be going down. But first of all, is it going to be retaken? I really doubt that, mainly because who's it going to be retaken with? I mean, if Greece takes it, it's just going to be an international, interfaith, cultural heritage site. And to me, when I look at that, it seems to me it's just as bad as a mosque. It's just a building. Like, it ends up just being a building. I'm not saying that, it's better if it's a mosque. It's not. They're just as bad. But who's going to retake it? That's kind of like what I'm thinking of. And I don't know. I don't understand the Hagia Sophia. And I living in Turkey, like I see it in the news every day. All these people talking about, should Hagia Sophia become a church? Should it be a mosque? Should it be a museum? What should happen to it? And then there's an Armenian patriarch, I believe, an Armenian bishop, who says, oh, I have a great idea. Let's make one part of it a mosque and the other part of it a church.
Oh.
What? Excuse me?
Yeah, and then everybody will call dibs on it. It's gonna be like the Holy Sepulchre.
So, like you can have that area. We can have this like small area, and we can pray in the same building. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make any sense. It seems like they're worshiping the building, and they don't really care about the faith, and that's what I have a problem with. And I'm not saying, again, is it important? Yeah. It's a sign of Orthodox Christian artistry. It's a sign of Roman Christian artistry.
The first thing that comes into my
faith
mind
and piety.
With that kind of suggestion is what concord hath Christ with Belial? Why would you ever think of having the liturgy, the holy sacrifice of the liturgy occurring there, and then just next door you have pagan worship? That's a ridiculous concept.
Yeah, I mean, tell that to like the fifth. I'm not like being mean to Karamasa or however you say that name. Like I see this with a lot of people, and this is more like it comes from a good place, I guess. But I would rather have the Turks keep it and then becoming Christians instead. I think that's a better alternative, and I think that's what we should focus. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm a Turkish agent, so who cares what I say?
Yeah, about the Hagia Sophia, maybe we should explain a little bit the whole situation, because some people don't understand it plainly. We have many Orthodox people who think that it is a church at the moment, which isn't really true. We have the Catholic who are calling for an e-crusade again. And the Muslim were like, yes, this is good, we're taking it from you. The Hagia Sophia was built as a traditional Orthodox basilica, rebuilt even bigger by Saint Justinian. And when it was taken by the Turks, it was immediately converted to a mosque. So they covered the artworks, the mosaics, but even like they added the Allah and stuff like this. And of course, it was built as a church, but then after the Ataturk time, it became a museum.
Yeah.
And then you had the mosaics cohabiting with the name of Muhammad and Allah and stuff like this, and it's already not fit to be a church. And I think now there's only one little chapel in it that is technically a church, but it's already a museum, and a museum by definition is dead stones. And that's what we have in Europe. We have many beautiful churches in Europe that are basically museums.
Empty.
And
they're empty.
And the church is a living representation of heaven. If you look at how it's built and so on, it's meant to represent the tabernacle, the Temple of Solomon, Eden, and paradise. And the main idea is that it is living. So if the Turks want to take it back and pray in a mosque with images in them, pray in a mosque that is not oriented towards Mecca, just for their ethnic pride or something, national pride, that you're already showing that is not honest. And right now, it is not a church. It is a museum.
I wanna add, by the way, I wanna add something else.
Yeah, go ahead.
The whole debate that goes in Turkey is based on whether Turkey can legally do it, and a big chunk of the debate, and a lot of people in Turkey realize that actually they can legally change it back to a mosque, essentially, and all it needs is the president just signing a piece of paper, and it's a mosque again. So that's kind of like all he needs to do. So it's all in the hands of the president. Also, Alex says, will it be better for it to serve? I mean, yes, ideally, yes. Ideally speaking, yes. But we're not dealing with what's ideal. That's kind of the question here. I think also even that, I think we have other things to worry about than Hagia Sophia. That's another thing. Again, it sucks, obviously, but we have atheism in the West. Why do they care about Hagia Sophia?
Well, I think I might have a slight disagreement with you guys actually on this point. Interestingly, so when do you guys think the last liturgy happened in Hagia Sophia?
It was after
it was 100 years ago during the war between Greece and Turkey. I think they did a liturgy in Hagia Sophia during the war, to my knowledge.
Snek, when do you think it was?
Yeah, during the occupation, after World War I, when Turkey was being dismembered, the Greeks went in there. But I think maybe there was...
Wrong. The last liturgy in Hagia Sophia was held in 1919. I mean, I want to post a little story from Orthodox Christian.
Yeah, 100 years ago. What did you say?
No, I thought you said 800 years ago.
No, I said 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
After World War I. So yeah.
Sorry then, not wrong. But yeah, I put an Orthodox Christian article, and yes, so it was 1919. So there's an argument here to be had about whether or not the consecration of a church persists. What do you think about that?
Persists. I think it does. Yeah, I think it does.
So I think that the Hagia Sophia is still a church. I
think it always is. Yeah.
I'm not sure. If you look at the Merovingian councils, they are saying that sometimes it is even better to literally demolish Arian churches, and sometimes you can reconsecrate under some circumstances. So historically, both point of view have been used. But again, the Hagia Sophia is, of course, it holds a very special place in the Orthodox world. But yeah, I mean, some stuff would have to go. Most notably, the Islamic calligraphy.
Yeah, so no, I was a little confused because I thought you guys said you thought the last liturgy was after the Greek
Yeah.
War for Independence or something, which was like 1830. So
Yeah,
anyway.
I see your point. You're basically saying it's still a church, so even if there are Muslims worshiping, they're basically worshiping in a church at the end of the day. I
Yeah,
think that's kind of the
I think they're piling sins onto themselves personally.
I definitely agree with you on that point. I think it is still a church. My issue is more so that, like, you know, if you add in with the current reality, you are kind of worshiping in the same space as Muslims, and you're not doing anything about it. Like, that's the thing. Like, if a Muslim comes to an Orthodox church and he starts saying Allah Akbar or something like that, you will throw him out.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
You will throw him out. Yeah, you will throw him out. Okay, but bearing that in mind, and the entirety of it is a church, but you're not throwing the guys out. So that's the problem, you see. That's basically that's why the Armenian Patriarch suggestion is so bogus. Like, with that logic, I definitely get. I always say on Twitter, why are Muslims worshiping in a church? Always, and not just Hagia Sophia.
But you know, they always bring
but
up
many other churches in Anatolia.
When you mention that, they always bring that up. They always bring up Andalus, and then like every time they bring up Spain, they're like, "Oh, but you turned our mosque into a cathedral. The Catholics turned the mosque into a cathedral." And it's like, dude, like, that was because they were retaking land that you had conquered. It's not
taken
the same.
Away from them. Yeah.
I mean, the Hagia Sophia had been in there for what 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same.
And anyways, I think we will. I think it's enough. I think it's enough. We had enough about this Hagia Sophia talk.
Boring, lame. Let's move on.
Brave, yeah. So, the only thing I can think of right now is, like, talking about video games. Honestly, I want to talk about video games.
Let's not talk about video games. No video games.
Okay. Well, chat could give us a good suggestion because my brain is empty.
What do you want to talk about, Snek?
I guess we could talk. I always talk about Turkey though. But Turkey, you guys can think. I'll answer this question. Is Turkey a Muslim country or is it secular? Legally speaking, it's secular. In the sense of what the majority population is, culturally Muslim. Do they take their faith seriously? That's a different question. There are many secular Muslim Turks that are merely cultural, and there are many Turks that take their Islam seriously. So there's like two factions basically on that side. It's kind of like with Christian countries, I think. Like, there's a lot of actual Christians, and then there are Christians that are like Christians because they're Greek, or they are German, or they're Greek because they're Russian or something. Let's talk about video game community drama. Oh, that reminds me. I'm sorry, Lewis, but I'm talking here too much. But that reminds me. Reckful unfortunately committed suicide.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Care about him, yeah, but I hope I hope God has mercy on him, because that guy, I feel so bad about him because he was bullied on Twitter, on Twitch, constantly, and I'm gonna get there. But what were you gonna say?
Oh, I mean, you can talk about that briefly. I just wanted to talk about this comment about Imran Hussein, which I think is a funny thing. I don't know if you know about him, but I can explain it briefly if you want. Just talk about your Reckful thing.
Sure. Yeah. Talk about Imran Hussein, and then we can move on.
Okay, so Imran Hussein, he's like this sheikh, right? I think he's from like India, or he's from, well, not India, but he's from that area, like Southeast Asia. And he has this bizarre theory, and you can look it up on YouTube. It's called the Coming Alliance, and his theory is that, well, in the Quran it talks about, you know, these Christians who aren't arrogant and who aren't, you know, they retain monasticism and you know, this kind of stuff. And he's like, it's not the Roman Catholics and it's not the Protestants, because they're like imperialists and they try to force their culture on everyone and stuff like that. Like, he's like, if I want to eat salmon curry with my fingers, I should be able to do that. I don't have to use a knife and fork, and I shouldn't have to have someone telling me how to eat my food or how to dress. Like, what is all this thing of tuxedos and stuff? Like, I actually agree. Like, I think I don't like, I mean, I'll wear them, but I think it's like carbon copy. Like the West is just carbon copy. Like everyone's wearing jeans, everyone's wearing. Anyway, side issue. So he's like, there's going to be a coming alliance between Islam and Orthodoxy. That's what he thinks. And he goes to he visits Russia to talk to Russian Orthodox theologians and stuff about theology and whatnot, and he's like really impressed with all the beards and everything, and so yeah, I mean that's his idea.
I think that sounds consistent with Islam. Remember, Quran never says the Bible is corrupt. Quran never says that Christians have the wrong book. Quran says the Christians misinterpret that book. So I always like reminding that to people. But about Reckful, so no, I was saying Twitch. I mistakenly said Twitter. But with Reckful, the first time I ever heard of him was 2013. And at the time, I was interested. I was playing Hearthstone. And there was a major tournament in Hearthstone where Reckful played. And I believe this was the final at BlizzCon. And Reckful missed lethal. Now that means, imagine chess, right? If you guys know about chess, it's like missing a mate in one, like a really easy mate in one. He missed that, he choked, and he lost the game. He lost the finals because of that. Ever since then, I've seen people for years making fun of that guy because of it. And a guy's like he can't take it. Like I probably even today they're reminding him, hey, remember that time you lost the final because you missed an easy move. And just like people just constantly made fun of the guy. And it wasn't that he couldn't and I can sympathize, because one of the things I realized is that when you have a group of people that don't like you and when they let you know about that, it's not nice. Imagine one person saying, I don't like you, I think you're dumb. Imagine 10 people saying that now. It's not easy. And now in the case of people like him, imagine thousands of people making fun of him and thinking he's just a joke. So my friend J2 Nick had a good response to the whole thing. I'm gonna find his Twitter, but it was about the culture of suicide prevention, right? They were like, oh, just call this number and don't commit suicide, that kind of culture. So he has let me find it. Yeah. So he says, I love how secular places like Reddit think that they can solve the issue of suicide by just plastering walls of text with phone numbers to suicide hotlines and throwing money on charities. So his point is that there's a deeper issue, and they're not answering that deeper issue. And I will also like to add,
I'll be right back. I'm just grabbing some water.
People making fun of, the very same people that make fun of people like him that are about to commit suicide, the next day they're like, oh, I feel so sad for him. Well, yeah, but you're the one who drove him to this. So what do you think, Snek, if you have any opinions now that Lewis is gone?
I think Nick's comment is also interesting in the sense of what is suicide? Suicide is giving up, is the pinnacle of depression, of losing all hope, and that's a problem. We live in a society where there is no sense of ultimate hope, and that's what faith used to provide. And since there is no sense of ultimate hope, if following contingency of the world, you lose quite a bit of hope, you can lose all meaning in life, and that will put you in the situation where suicide will be the logical solution. Of course, there is also emotional factors. There are also things that make you irrational. But the problem is not only we are subjected to this kind of irrational thoughts. We live in a society where suicide itself can become the rational thing to do, and where oftentimes choosing death is advertised as being rational. So, if you read the elite's books about, like, for example, Jacques Attali and so on, he will tell you that we should like let the elderly die or kill them, or even when it comes to abortion, we live in a society that teaches people that that choosing death is a good thing. And that's impressive. Of course, people are going to talk, say, oh, martyrdom, or is this rational, and so on. This is all another debate. But yes, this is a problem. And I think that's what Nick drives at, especially when he mentions the fact that society is secularized. But the fact that the society is secularized is already the problem. You're just putting a band-aid if you're saying, go talk to this person who was literally paid to maybe try to care about you.
Yeah, like you pay money to a person and he pretends to care about you when they don't. They just want your money.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's an amazing point. I mean, in the modern world, we don't have you can't have a proper idea of personhood, proper idea of meaning of life. All of that is gone. They're meaningless, right? And people are starting to notice that, wait, provided with the logical conclusions and seeing that I'm suffering, why should I not do this, right? Why should I not just end it? And ultimately the problem is secularism, because it destroys personhood, it destroys dignity of any persons, it destroys any idea of morality, it destroys anything good, anything that we assume in this world that is second nature, it rejects it. And that's what happens. You see with people like Etika, you see with people like Reckful, that's the end of it. So welcome back, Lewis. Did you have a good time?
I was just getting some drinks, bro.
Yeah, nice. But yeah, like for example, I mean, material success is not actually meaningful, as Leo says. Yeah. Snek's appearance is brought to you by Gangvid. Daniel asks, am I in Istanbul? Not anymore. Ever since the sea beer virus, I've been staying at my parents in southwest Turkey. So I've left there, but I was there studying. Now I'm back here chilling at my village, relaxing with my really bad internet connection, this is the only way I can stream. I can't stream on my own. I had to use Lewis's internet connection. Thank you.
Yeah, you're a scrounger.
Exactly. Awkward silence. Now let's like work our brains together to talk about something.
I thought you were thinking about something.
No. I don't think, man. My brain doesn't function that way.
Well, what was the last subject you guys were talking about when I was away?
Just, secularism destroying the idea of personhood, Reckful suicide, Oh, it reminds me. I on Twitter before the stream, I made a tweet saying, no, I posted someone posting about like their DNA test. They're Turkish.
Oh, I saw
So they're
this.
saying, yeah. So I got 50% Greek, 14% Central Asian, 11% West Asian, whatever, like that. And the whole post is basically saying, I might be Greek, but fuck Greek people, I am a Turk. Like the whole post is basically that. And
a huge cope.
And like I posted that, and Greek Twitter found that post, and they're like, "Oh, this guy is so stupid." And like it's like, so I thought that was fun. Like Greek Twitter just found that, and I saw Turkish people coming in, and like I saw someone saying like, "I'm Circassian, but actually I'm Turkish, and you will not know about it, dude." I live in Turkey. I have a Turkish citizenship. I lived here for more than 10 years. For more than half my life, I've been here. I do know about it. I just think it's stupid. So I don't know. It's just strange. Like that's why I say it's like America.
Yeah. Well, what I gathered, I've been studying in a place that had a lot of Turkish people, and you will have a wide range of phenotypes. You will have people who don't look anything like one another. You will have like people who literally look Slavic, like gender blue.
It's like North Africa.
Yeah,
and you will Africa.
And you will have other one who are like looking like very brown and furry and stuff like this. And that's a thing that's very interesting. Turkey is really like it's not built up on ethnicity, because depending on who you ask, you have people who say, "Oh, we need to look to the West because you're inherently Western." You have the other one who say, "We need to retake the title of the Caliph," and you have the other one who say, "Yeah, we need to go back to the Eurasian steppe." So yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
the Central Asian steppe. So um, it's very diverse, and people have like different ways to see the world. So it's so radical in Turkey. I think the only thing that really unites all the people is denying the Armenian genocide at this point.
This guy says, I don't understand why Turks hate us, and my thesis is that I know you're not like that, David, because I don't know there's something to do.
Monarchikos.
Yeah,
I think I read that properly.
There's a strange thing. I think that because you're Orthodox, you're not going to get butthurt by this, but I honestly think Turks are just jealous of Greek hegemony. That's what
Yeah, Greek power boys. They hate Greeks because
they hate Christianity.
Turks have because it's kind of it's multiple different things. So if you go to Turkish school, you kind of understand. When I was a kid, I hated Greeks. I was like, damn, Greeks suck, and it was kind of normal, and that was kind of like a normal thing for people to do. You know, you look at history and like television shows. So, for example, there's a TV show called Fetih Osmanlı or something like that. I don't remember. I don't keep up with that, but they like always bring up these annual Ottoman TV shows, and it's always the same. Ottomans are the good guys. The Romans, the Greeks, they are the bad guys. That's kind of like every single time they do this. So all of these things combined, and you start to understand why they hate them. And also Greeks, you know, I will say they lack tact. Modern Greeks, when they will like go on like paragraph wide like rants against Turks, and when Turks see this, they're like, damn, these guys are crazy. And of course, considering how it's normal to deny the Armenian genocide, the Pontic genocide, all of these things combined, you start to understand why Turks dislike Greeks. And my dad really dislikes Greeks, even though he himself is one, probably. Which is funny. Do I vote JP or AKP? JP is the liberal guy. They're the liberal guys. AKP is like the Islamic, like the main conservative guys. And MHP, they're the nationalist guys. I don't vote because I don't believe in democracy. That's my answer.
That's an interesting topic. Should you vote even if you don't think democracy is legit?
Exactly. Yeah. Democracy in general. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Snek.
What do you think?
So for the last few elections, I didn't vote anymore because the one's a presidential election. So in France, it's not so interesting. But if we look at it historically, we can see that there's this idea of political apathy and acceptation of the power. So in that sense, we accept when there's an hegemony, but we also can see church fathers and saints who are acting in a more political way. For example, Saint John of Kronstadt. So I believe that when they had an Orthodox order to protect, they would protect it. But today, like you can, like I don't see if there's really any choice. I would say I don't know. Maybe vote for the least bad option. But
I mean, yeah. Go ahead, finish. Yeah, sorry.
So I think it really depends on the context. I think in some contexts it might be interesting, but like myself, I don't really believe in democracy either.
So here's my take. I'm thinking, hey, if I can just do a vote, like if I can just write a tick on a piece of paper, and it can change the outcome potentially of the trajectory of my country to something that's not so bad as it would be before, because now it is really just a stalling game at this point in the West. It's just how long can we hold back the tide. So I thought it was a good idea, but then at the same time I was like, hang on, like I believe in monarchy, so in principle I really shouldn't be voting. But what changed my mind recently is the thing that happened in Russia recently, where they changed the constitution.
Yeah.
And they changed the constitution to prohibit same-sex unions, and also to put God back in the constitution, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, hey, Patriarch Kirill voted for that, first of all. Secondly, imagine if all Orthodox Christians in Russia were just deciding not to vote that day because, we're monarchy. So for me, it's kind of like either you're stalling or you're doing it to bring it back to where you want to be. So I think voting is it's cringe, but it feels really cringe as well. But I mean, yeah, I think it's a
It
good thing
depends.
to do.
You will say, do you think it depends on what you're voting on?
Well, let me put it this way. This is one of the big issues, as I've mentioned before, is like whether a party's pro-abortion or not. And like, if all the parties are pro-abortion, it's tempting on one hand to just not vote. But yeah, I think in a sense maybe it does depend, but I think I would still vote.
I think when you well, here's what I have a problem with. If you're voting, well, I guess it depends if it's all the parties support abortion, maybe. But when for example, one of the criticisms I had with Joseph Sweden was that he's Yang Gang, and Andrew Yang supports abortion. So you can say all you want about UBI, which, by the way, UBI, maybe it's good in theory,
it's a tool of
but
control.
in reality, it's a tool. It's a tool of control, exactly.
Yeah,
so
for sure,
that's that's a problem. But when you see I can't see myself believing in a priest that's like, oh yeah, I just vote for the pro-abortion candidate. But then again, isn't it strange? Like, to my knowledge, Putin's Russia has abortion, right? How does that work there?
Yeah,
I'm not a Putinite or a Russophile or anything.
I
So
know the church
I don't
has
know
been
much.
working hard to put more and more restrictions that have been added. I don't think you get to see it much in the news, but they have been adding more and more restrictions. Like in Soviet era, it was literally up to birth for no reason, and now I think it's more like 12 weeks with some restrictions and stuff, and more being piled on.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like changing my mind somewhat. I think I see your point. Like, if we enter this in a very rigid way, the problem is that you destroy the possibility of even any proper improvement. Like, if you go oh, this guy, he's against this one Christian principle, so I'm not gonna even give him a chance. Well, yes, but at the same time, it's people didn't have the opportunity to not pay taxes to an abortionist emperor, for example. We didn't tell those people to revolt. We didn't tell those people to even be non-participants. And they certainly didn't do that in the Roman Empire. Rather, they participated with the power of the gospel of Christ, living that way, dying for their faith. And that's how the abortionist evil empire became a Christian holy empire. So, bearing that in mind, I mean, yeah, it does seem like more of a depends on the situation basis. But if you're in a country like America, for example, where you do have people that legitimately have a strong hold and they are pro-life, whereas in Russia, it's not really that way. I can't see myself being on the same side as someone who supports a pro-choice candidate, for example, because you have a multiple different people who are strongly pro-life, for example, or XYZ as well. So that's kind of what I think about it.
What do you think of this? What do you think of this comment?
As I said, I don't know too much about Putin. I don't know much about Russia, so maybe it's possible.
What do you think, Snek? What do you think of that comment?
It's
just for appearance.
of course, it was to throw a bone to this particular sector of the Russian electorate, which are, the conservative and the Orthodox, but still a good bone. And
Yeah.
Siemens put in power again. Like, this is like pure politics, and I don't think like we should even care about pure politics. If the guy is a dictator, but he's not a dictator, if he's been here for 20 years, or if you want to stay for 40 years, doesn't really matter, especially if he's not openly against us. If you look historically, I think we've had like very bad emperors and saints, like literally asking God, like, why have you brought us this bad emperor? And an angel came down and told them, like, yeah, because you deserve it. So this is the worst thing. This is the worst thing I could find, and you deserve it, and that's what you're gonna have. So I don't know. I think the real danger is that Putin takes control of the church, or that the secular authorities take control of the church. But maybe there's this rise of nationalism that might devolve into some weird paganism stuff. But I don't see any dogmatic problem with what's happening, and I think it's going the good way. And if the church managed to be a political force to be reckoned with, yes, we could even at some point move on to fighting the abortionist. So again, we should have maybe have a nuanced takes on politics. We are not here to heal the world, but if you look at the Roman Empire, when it was pagan, people wanted to heal it, and they healed it by public action, like building hospitals.
Yeah, over time, over a long time. By the way.
So again, this is the main point of Orthodoxy. It's all about regeneration. It's about therapeutic, and we literally need to bring theosis to society. Basically.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is literally what secular historians say about Saint Constantine. They just say, oh well, he just did all this Christian stuff just for show. So I would maybe hesitate and just think a little bit about,
Well, when you look at actually, go on. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, all my point was just to think about, just kind of look at the glass half full. Don't focus on the garbage. Yeah, you can still point it out, but when there's credit given where credit's due, basically, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I actually forgot what I was going to say, but that's all my fault because my memory is pea-brain small. The Russian government, there's a point to be made that there's a mistake that Russophiles make, is that Russia does have that problem, although at the same time it's decreasing. That's usually the response, but obviously that's not like, oh, okay, then that problem doesn't exist. No, obviously it does exist, and I think it indicates. I remember I think he was a Serbian patriarch. He said the reason why Kosovo is in, like, if an Albanian woman gives birth to 10 children, and if a Serbian woman, if a Serbian woman aborts 10 children, then obviously Kosovo is going to be in the Albanians' hands, and God is going to give that to them because of that.
Yeah,
and that's natural.
An example of direct action against abortion. For example, the Patriarch of Georgia said that every second children, if I remember correctly, or fourth children, I don't remember, but that he will personally baptize and be the godfather of children that of extra children that are being born into couples. So this is a kind of action we can take, and I think that this like really curbed abortion rates in Georgia, and we should look up to initiatives like this.
And I also want to add, Bronze Age Pervert makes a really good point on this in his book. It's in the last part of his book, where he talks about how we should push our ideas in the real world. One of the things he talks about is anonymity, which is kind of like online, which is kind of what we're doing. But on the real world, how should we do it? And I myself was very optics guy. I was a very anti-optics guy. I'm not a full-on optics guy either. I don't believe in denying our principles just to look good for the world. This is actually the thing that causes many issues. But he makes a good point that if you're going to do on street, you shouldn't just walk with tiki. He doesn't say tiki torches, but you shouldn't just walk and just do nothing. You should actually help people. You should actually, help your community, provide for your community, be out there, and you're going to get slandered, right? Like Christians were slandered. Christians were slandered by the pagans a lot of the times. Did that stop Christians? Did that make them go, okay, I guess I'm going to kill you now? No. It made the pagans look bad, because all they looked at Christians and all they could see is their love for mankind, and that's the thing, really. It's about ourselves, and we need to self-analyze ourselves. I mean, when you think of Christians today, you don't think that at all. It's not even close to that. It's far, far away from that. And of course, you can talk about, well, yes, but that's the way the modern society is. Well, yes, of course, and it's going to take a long time. And I'm not saying that the Christians at Roman times were like 100% perfect. That's not true either. I'm just saying that we kind of need to show what Christianity is. When people think about Christianity, what do they think? Oh, it's these like crazy puritanical, hypocritical people, right? That's a big thing. They think we're hypocritical because you look at the movies, every bishop is like depicted as a pedophile and as a hypocrite. And you have to kind of negate that, I think. And that's going to play a big part in this, in that manner. Just wants to add there.
There was a comment here I wanted to look at. This one. I have a funny little thing to tell about this. So, my dad owns like a patch of land in Canada, and I just asked him. I was like, "Do you reckon it's big enough to have like a commune set up on it?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's like 110 acres, so it's like Vatican City size." So I was just thinking, what do you guys think? Like, if we set up a commune in Canada, and like, is that a shitty country to set it up in, or is that based? You tell me in the chat what you think about that. We could like raise the trees, and then I'm unironically thinking of this like as a concept. I'm entertaining it as a concept for now, but I'm just wondering what you guys would think. So yeah, unless you guys have you're muted, David. So
I was muted. Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, like, what do you think, Snek? Because he's been silent, and
I don't really have
people are watching for him.
About this, because that might be something interesting. That's so early Christian organized. Like, we should obviously seek to live in this kind of community. And basically, there's always been two ways to go around it, like live outside of the world or fight the world. So I think that might be a possibility. And ultimately, if you want to, I mean, it shouldn't hinder the fact that we have to improve the society we're on. We don't have to save it, because we're not here to save things by political means. But in one sense, we should try to improve the society we live on, and that's, for example, things that I think Church of the Eternal Logos had someone who was Orthodox and running for political offices, and that might be an interesting thing. And at the same time, I understand this drive to leave society, and whether be it in monasticism or in small communities. And I think maybe both should work in synergy. Like, we shouldn't go full Amish, basically. What I mean?
Yeah. My view is, I agree with the concepts as well. I think that's definitely healthy. But here's what I don't agree with. I don't think that we should like have a location, put people in there, and have like, okay, you from France, you from Britain, like, you guys come here too. Like, just leave your country and come to this like project that we're building. I don't think that's realistic. I think that's it's unrealistic because it's too unnatural. And I think these things have to happen naturally in its own pace. What I mean by that is, like, if you're trying to be friends with someone, you don't walk up to them, at least not in my experience, you don't walk up to them and say, hey, let's be friends and let's talk about stuff that friends will talk about. That's not really how it works. You can say that we should be friends, I think, but you shouldn't be like, okay, let's like talk about these topics, but not these topics, because if you talk about these topics, we cannot be friends or something like that. That's unnatural, right? It's kind of like that. And I think just areas around monasteries are definitely a good place to start. So, for example, Saint Anthony's Monastery in Florence, Arizona, has a very good community. So there are already communities like that. Definitely, like if you can literally just move there and live around that monastery, you have a monastery you can go to. But if that's too hardcore for you, because Saint Anthony's Monastery is pretty hardcore, like they will give you penances that last months long. If you tell them, Father, I sinned today, I masturbated to a picture of hentai, he is going to say, okay, the next time you do, I'm not giving you communion for 2 months. If you can't take that, good. If you can't take that, if you're gonna have a very hard time, then that might be a mistake for you, because you might just be too weak for that strength. So there are communities already that do exist in some sense, and they didn't exist from online. They existed. They came to be naturally. Some of them had online support. Some of those people, I'm pretty sure, knew each other online, and they were like, "Hey, come over. I live here." And like, "Yeah, I'll think about it." And they just look at there and like, "Yeah, I want to be living here." Like, for example, there's that. It's the reason why it's so difficult is the way the world is set. City life is incredibly promoted. The richer you are, the further away you can live from the city. The poorer you are, the closer you have to live to the city. That's how the system is set. So if you're not really rich, it's very difficult to have that kind of life. If you want to have a community close to a city, perhaps you can, and it depends on the location. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and the intent is good, and I support it. But at the same time, if you try to avoid all of these different factors into making this plan a reality, it's always going to be a failure. That's what I think. And I also believe that, obviously, as you guys have said, this doesn't apply to every single person. Why does it not apply to every single person? It doesn't apply to every single person, because if every single person left the cities and went into like their own areas, sure, it might be good for them. But the people in the city, I don't think it will be good for them. And I think it will be very worse for those people. And you're kind of leaving them alone instead of, providing them an opportunity somewhat. But at the same time, when I think about this, you also have to think about a lot of different factors as well. That's kind of my overall take. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I do have a point. I don't know. Are you guys going to say anything?
Well, no, I mean, like you yeah, I don't know if there's much to add to what you've said.
Agree with you as well.
Yeah.
We should close borders to everyone who isn't Orthodox and willing to assimilate.
This, of course, includes nations such as Greece. I think the model should be like what the Roman Empire was going for. I think that's that's not actually true, because empires and nations that have different, like empires are
Conglomeration
confederacy
of nations.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So it doesn't work that same way.
Like Serbia and Greece are very ethnic and ethnically Orthodox somehow. Like these ethnicities have been Orthodox historically. So maybe if you look at what Greece nationalities is also about language and culture. So that's why you see you can see some like black people who get integrated into Greece because they speak Greek, and
or Greek people integrating into Africa. It happens vice versa. Because there are mission parishes in Uganda, I believe.
Here's my take.
Yeah, but for Russia, I don't think it would be the same thing, because Russia functionally is still an empire. It has different nation, and they even makes a difference. There's if you talk to a Russian national, you will call him a Rossiyski, and if you talk to someone who is ethnically Russian, like Great Russian, like this Slavic kind, you will say Rus or Rusi. So yeah, it's not the exact same thing. So, for example, there are populations in Russia that are Muslim and their culture is integrated into Russia as Muslims, and that's why,
Yeah.
for example, this amendment in the constitution, of course, is welcome because God is backing the constitution, but they do not say the most holy Trinity like you have in the Greek constitution. They say God in a general sense.
Yeah.
My take
yes,
is.
go on,
Yeah, you
Lewis.
go ahead. No, you go ahead. Otherwise, you'll forget because of your pea brain.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for autism awareness, guys. Like mentally ill guy awareness. Lewis is such a nice guy. So I was gonna say about this, like, in addition, yes, definitely closed borders is definitely something that should be a reality. But I think Christians will also agree that pilgrims should not be rejected either way. But obviously, the current model where anyone can come in, anyone can come out, is a very anti-nation idea. And I'm not talking about anti-nation states because I don't really care about the concept of nation states. Nations are a different thing. Nations are population groups, they're ethnicities, and it's a concept. It's a biblical concept, and it's a concept that should be protected. Old Testament Israel protected. Meanwhile, at the same time, they also say you should treat foreigners like they're your own people. Yes, you shouldn't. I don't think that we should like look at like foreign people and go like, oh, you're a dumbass. Like I hate you. Like that's you should have hospitality. Hospitality is very important, but you can have hospitality with a closed borders too. With that kind of, I mean, Japanese people today are very hospitable, but they don't let anyone become like the same people are very, very hospitable will say you can never become Japanese, and that's true. They can never become Japanese. I can never become a Japanese person even if I tried my entire life because I just don't have that. And I think it needs, like, when people think of that kind of stuff, they think like basically anti other people kind of thing. Not really. That's not actually, that doesn't always happen. You can treat your neighbors, your national neighbors, you can treat foreigners in your nation as if they're your own people, while protecting the idea of nationhood and keeping your borders closed. That's my take.
My take is that I'm not necessarily so particular about having Orthodox Christians come in, but I do think we should. This is a hypothetical immigration system. I don't know if you guys agree with it. My hypothetical immigration system would be to totally disallow. No, I'm not going to say that. Actually, I don't want to get done in. I would.
Actually, if you say that, I will get done in, not you. It's my channel.
No, I would give a great favoritism and precedence to Christians of any sort. Just generic.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. Let's just put it that way. I would make it easier for Christians to get in than for non-Christians.
Yeah.
I
Also,
agree.
if I recall, in Genesis, it is said that there is an angel following each nation, and as such, I believe that nations and cultures have a right to exist, evolve in their way, but without being imposed to mix, to be destroyed, to be dismembered, to be dismantled. And of course, Christianity needs to play a role regardless of the culture. So they need to be defended, and Christianity needs to expand, but not at the expense of other cultures. For example, in France here, we're working on translating Menologians because it's not a Greek or a Russian church. And if you look at what many priests would tell you is that we have a right to safeguard our history or culture while still being Orthodox. And that's also about replacement migration and stuff like this. Nation have a right to be protected.
Yeah, I mean, it is trying to destroy nations. Well, actually, if you look at the Old Testament, it's like, so I'm not going to make that comment. So Alex wants us to address that the fact that Goark is openly pro-BLM. What does it exactly mean? I mean, is he talking about not
What do
patriarch,
you want us
Archbishop
to?
Elpidiaforos?
Yeah, what do you want us to address? We talked about that in our last
I
episode.
have a video on Archbishop Elpidiaforos. I already addressed it.
Yeah.
So
we talked about it
what
in
do I
the
need to?
podcast.
But that
before.
reminds me. Did you guys see I think it was OCN where they had a stream, like with like Antiochian church sponsoring it, where they were talking about like racism, that stuff. Yeah, we talked about Lewis in the super secret bunker DM.
Yeah,
right?
I remember that. And our good friend was sharing it around.
Yeah. He's our best friend. We love him. I hope he leaves the hill he's dying on. But but yeah, that reminds me of that. It's so crazy. Like you see Rokor that has a very sober take, and then you see Goark, other places that I've read. But I already addressed that. I'm not going to address it again. I already talked about that.
Let's
So
move
I'm not.
on.
Let's move on. I'm not like I've already talked about this stuff like to death.
Are there French-speaking parishes in France, Snek?
Yeah, so it will depend. You have different jurisdiction, and some will be mostly in Greek or in Russian or in Romanian. Some will be mostly in French, but at the very least, usually they say the creed in all the language possible. But then there's a problem of how to translate. There's still not like there's still no full Bible translation, for example, of in French. We're still working on translating Menologion for some of our saints. So it evolves slowly. Usually, it's depending on the parish. If the parish is very ethnic, you will have more French. You will have less French. If it's more open, if there's been more converts, it will be more French. And the Romanians are actually commendable. The Romanians actually did a lot in that regard, and in evangelizing in France. And they also, I think some of them even took, instead of saying, oh, you use a bishop of, somewhere in Turkey that hasn't seen Christians in 1,000 years. No, like they actually name bishop of like places where the bishop actually is. That's good. But yeah, we're working into making them more French. We're working in translating things as well.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Oh,
we got a good question. The questions I enjoy. Thoughts on DDLC? I asked him what is a DDLC, and he said Doki Doki Literature Club. Finally, we're talking about stuff I actually care about. So I'm just kidding. Halfly. Doki Doki Literature Club. I'm not gonna joke. I'm gonna be completely serious and honest. I played that game. It was like really bad when it was like slice of life portions. Then one of the characters does the Reckful, and I closed the game because I was like, okay, so this is one of those kinds of games. That's when I played that game. I don't think you guys played Doki Doki Literature Club, but
let me Google that. What is that?
It's like it's a seemingly innocent visual novel, when in reality it's turns out it's really not that innocent. So kind of like, I don't know the Western version of it. Like, it's kind of like Happy Tree Friends. You guys have seen that? Like they have like these cutesy animals.
I've seen Happy Tree Friends. That's classic. That's that's
old.
Classic. That's old.
Yeah, it's like Happy Tree Friends. That's basically Doki Doki Literature Club.
That's messed up.
Do you know Happy Tree Friends, Snek?
Yeah, I remember.
I remember in school, the first time I came into contact with Happy Tree Friends was my classmates watching it. This was 4th grade. 4th grade, my classmates are watching cute little animals dying gruesome deaths. And
interesting. Yeah.
That's not a kid shouldn't see that really.
Yeah, like that's when we
think-
realize that we've been subjected.
I don't even think we should even we shouldn't be seeing that.
Yeah, like it was gross. It was needlessly violent, and that's a thing, you know. I don't even remember being particularly shocked, but it is clearly shocking. But yeah, maybe that's this time of life when you want to, you know, push the limits. But yeah, that's very gross, and children should be able to see that.
Yeah. Anything you want to add before we go on to the thing?
How much longer is this podcast going to go on for? Can we do like another?
Forever.
Can we do another? I don't know.
An hour?
An hour. You did this to me last time. You made me do a 3 hour
You need to
podcast.
sleep, you little baby.
No, I have.
Sleep.
I told my friends I'd do something with them, and I completely forgot about it.
Wow. Okay. Well, depends. If when the questions end, we can end it. So how about that? When the questions end, we can end it.
All right.
Okay.
And questions,
So-
chat. Questions right now.
Yeah. So my pronoun is dinosaur. So
These guys want to
dinosaur
keep me here
asks,
forever.
what estimate do you think are autists on this side of Twitter/YouTube? Well, it really depends. What do you mean by autist? Because it seems like autist seems like today autist means anyone who takes these things serious, anyone who takes something seriously. That's like what I realized about the term autist. Like if you take your faith seriously, you're an autist. If you take your politics seriously, you're an autist. If you take your hobby seriously, you're an autist. If you're talking about actual autistic people, like real autistic people, then I don't know. That's kind of difficult. I mean, Bronze Age Pervert will say they're not autists; they're just Bronze Age people. So that's what he will say, and I actually kind of agree with him in some sense.
Yeah,
I
mean,
think
to an extent, we're all striving for some level of autism in that sense. For example,
yeah.
I remember talking to Jade Dyer, and he said like, you know, I'm not a Spurg, not fully at least, and like okay, some people are on the spectrum, but they exploit it well. Let's just say this, and there are more than you think, but yes, autism is just being used in a derogatory manner to disregard people who actually care about something. Like, yes, of course, we're autistic about this stuff. Like, we're looking into the acts of councils and into like into theology that wouldn't be like purely rationally useful in this world, because you know the world wants you to be a drone and to have like purely productive things. So in a sense, you know, we're all autistic to an extent, I'd say. But if you want like really like actual diagnosed autistic people, I'd say it's quite a bit here though. I'd say like on the spectrum, solid 50%.
What do you think, Lewis?
I think that everyone who's involved in apologetics or theology or philosophy to some extent has some tism in the bloodstream.
Yeah. But that's why I say it's a Bronze Age kind of thing, because it's something that gives us energy. It gives us love for what we do. Because if I didn't like what I was doing, I won't be doing this. So, do any of us attend a Rokor church? Well, when I was in Constantinople, the thing about Constantinople is that it's under the EP, so any church is going to be under the EP. It's not like the United States or anything, so it's an EP church. In my case, what about Lewis? I think yours was Rokor, right? Or
I don't know. Yeah, I think it is.
So I was received in a Rokor church in the cathedral. It was like highly Russified. Like there was not much English whatsoever. The priest that received me was English, but Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like hard to break into because of that, because it was pretty much all in Old Slavonic. And now my spiritual father is still a Reckful priest. I love him very much, and he also does liturgy pretty much almost entirely in Slavonic. But I think they're trying to add a bit more English in. But yeah, I mean, it's great. I love Reckful. I do have my criticisms of Reckful, but it's my favorite jurisdiction as it stands.
Same. What about you, Snek? Wait.
Yeah. At the moment, I don't have a church. But from what I hear, the Reckful seems to be solid. I mean, I often see priests from Reckful, being able to sometimes, even point out when Moscow is doing weird stuff. Always point out when there's like Marxist things. So sometimes a bit too quick in jumping on some topics. Sometimes I feel that there's something in Reckful that maybe breeds some TOs, because they will always take a very strong position on everything. But usually they're the one with the best takes from what I know.
I don't know if they necessarily kind of enable that or anything. I think a lot of Reckful bishops are anti-TO from my experience at least, but TOs love them because they're base traditionalists. They're base traditionalist guys. So that's probably why.
At least in France, they will claim, as a TO groups, they will claim to, they will claim this mentality of, white Russian, we're gonna fight against absolutely everything, and we're the true Israel in exile somewhere, and
yeah.
Well, Reckful is well known for being the exilic church. They're staunchly pro-monarchy. They're literally like that contingent of the Russian church, pretty much just distilled into this concentrated pro-czarist white army kind of group. I mean, I don't want to paint them too much like that, but the bishops for the most part are pretty red-pilled.
And so he asked, when I said secularism is responsible for more suicide and unhappiness, I mean, it depends what you mean by unhappiness. It depends what you mean. I can't do Jordan Peterson, so I'm going to do baby voice. But it does depend. Like, if you mean like dopamine increasing and feeling happy, yes, but I'm talking more about fulfillment of life or having some purpose kind of happiness. Like, you can have dopamine from having sex with a bunch of women, for example, or you can like play a lot of video games and get a lot of money and do what you want. That will give you dopamine. But ultimately speaking, in a fundamental sense, you are eventually going to come to the realization that whatever I do really does not have a purpose. There's a lack of telos. And when that occurs, when you feel happy about doing some things, you will feel like this all just a puppet show, that you're just pretending to be happy. Even though you might have those feelings, you're just pretending to be happy. So secularism destroys the idea of actual personhood. It destroys the idea of meaning of life. You can't have any meaning of life in a secular. It's all relative. It all becomes relative, and what is relative does not have a real objective basis. It is in the eyes of the beholder, which even in that sense, I believe it was one of the streams, maybe Father Deacon Ananias, you were talking, Lewis, in your stream with Father Deacon, the quote from Aristotle, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, is actually like a quote that says that beauty is objective in some sense. So even in that sense, like if you don't have something objective basis, even the relative thing is not even really relative, is what I'm saying here. So for example, there's no objective standard of music. Well, there's not even a relative standard. It's just opinions. It's just something, I prefer this. It's like that. And ultimately my point is, with secularism, you don't have you don't have these things that you consider as second nature to, like morality, right? The idea that things are good and things are bad. That's a second nature thing that you feel like, yeah, this is something everyone shares, everyone has an idea of. Secularism destroys that. There's none of that. It's just all opinion. The idea that whatever you do has meaning, actually, no. Like, why are you trying to make yourself happy? What's the point of feeling good? Or what's the point of making other people feel good? Ultimately, there is none, because ultimately there's death. Once there's death, final sleep, where you just do nothing. Whereas in the Christian paradigm, you have all of these things. You have dignity in human persons. You have human personhood in the first place. You have meaning of life. You have morality. You have all of these things. And that doesn't mean that Christians are happy, but Christians are to be joyful. We are to be joyful because God is with us all the time. So that's my point about contrasting the secular worldview and the Christian worldview. Do you guys have any more comments, or should we move on?
Yeah, just like there's no ultimacy, like if you cannot believe in something in an ultimate sense, everything is relative, and if everything is relative, everything will be contingent. So you will be carried away by the swings of physical reality.
Mm-hmm. So Acrobatic Jesus asks, is violence ever condoned to reach a goal? I don't think I think you guys will know my answer. If you look at my Twitter, and you will see my answer, some of my posts. I will not speak on YouTube because YouTube maybe the YouTube algorithm will treat me in a bad way. But look at my Twitter, you'll see wink wink nudge nudge. Oh, that's my answer. It seems like a bit of a fed post question.
Yeah,
so
I think there's a good book that talks about it. It's like,
oh yeah, we can recommend books. Yeah, maybe.
I don't remember the name of it, but it's from
Depends
Ivan
on the goal.
Illich. Basically, fighting.
Depends on the goal, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's what he's ultimately talking about. But let's just say that pure pacifism is usually associated with Marcionism, Gnosticism, and like Tolstoy.
Not even usually. It is actually associated 100% with Marcionism, I think, because the God of the Old Testament is not a pacifist.
Yeah,
the prophets of the Old Testament are not pacifists. Even Jesus in the New Testament is not a pacifist.
Yeah, in the Old especially, sometimes people are shocked when you explain to them that, the angel of the Lord is also the leader of army, the commander of the armies of the Lord of hosts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Eugen asks, do you think the late emperors of the Byzantine Empire flirting with Eastern Catholicism was the main reason for the fall of Constantinople?
No,
I think that's one of the reasons. I don't think that's the ultimate. I don't think it's the ultimate reason. I think it's one of the reasons.
Yeah, there's never reasons. In historical analysis, there's never
one
a single reason for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. So it definitely contributed. I will say that definitely contributed. I mean, they basically betrayed their faith, the emperors and the bishops that followed them. But there's multiple different things that go into this as well.
I don't think it was the main reason. I think the sack of Constantinople was probably one of the main reasons.
Yeah, it had more of an impact. I mean, the dismemberment of the empire clearly was a bigger reason. But we shouldn't fall to this logic because, oftentimes you will have Roman Catholic who have a very superficial view of history will say, oh, look, Constantinople is not Turkish, therefore you're wrong. That's not a bad idea. For example, that's what Nick Fuentes actually said, and he blocked me when I answered him. But you cannot really say this because even if you take the Roman Catholic sense, you will see that Antioch, Jerusalem, and Alexandria fell under community with Rome. You will see that Rome was sacked multiple times, and as an Orthodox, we shouldn't be like, oh yeah, they deserved it because they signed Florence and therefore can die. Like if we look at our martyrs, there's even a specific classification for martyrs that are before the fall of Constantinople, which are called martyrs, and after the fall of Constantinople, which are called neo-martyrs. So in that sense, we should understand that this is a great crisis. There were bad things, but we cannot just say like God punished them for being unions. But yeah, of course, the decision of being isn't good. But we shouldn't fall to this thing, like
superstitious, basically. Like we shouldn't fall to superstitions.
like let's look at Russia. Russia was the only place in Europe that was submitted by the Tatars and the Mongols, and that's what built their faith, and they managed to make it survive. And then we can maybe say that they were rewarded for keeping this faith under persecution. That's what people will tell you about the Battle of Kulikova, and the fact that the Theotokos told Saint Sergius of Radonezh that it is now time for Russia, for Muscovy to be a state. So we shouldn't really fall for this macabre stuff like, oh, you lost the battle, so for God is not with you. It's a bit. Things are part of the Bible that even talk about this, or simply the book of Job.
And do you have anything to add, Lewis, or?
No, I agree with Snek's analysis. It is kind of superstitious to just kind of pin it all on one thing, one factor.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like a Roman Catholic thing of
there's different ways to do that.
It's like there's stupid trad arguments like, oh, you fell to this because you're schismatic or because X, Y, Z. It's like so stupid.
Yeah, that's another problem that people have with Christians. Like they think they associate it with superstitious people. We should definitely not be superstitious. Not because people claim that we are, but because superstition is bad.
Yeah.
Straight up.
And that's stupid because the church is militant and the church is being persecuted. So the stupid trad will make this argument, will say, oh, you fell to the Mongols, the communists, and the Ottomans and survived. That's because you're cursed and you're the wrong one. But my church is full of pedos and the entire West is fully secularized. But that's because the devil is fighting against the right church.
Yeah. You can explain everything away with superstition. That's what makes it really bad. You can explain everything away. Shining Diamond asks, thoughts on the future of monarchy in Europe? I mean, I definitely am not a monarchist for a monarchy's sake. Monarchies, like the noble families in Europe, are all cancers and they all should be gone. I'm not saying gone in the sense of dead, but gone in the sense of they shouldn't be counted as nobility. I don't believe they're nobles. And so that might be contradictory for some because people might say, well, I mean, is it that throwing away the idea of lineage? They had that lineage. Yes, but at the same time, I'm more of like a pragmatic kind of a monarchist. Like if you look at the regression to the mean, if you look at regression to the mean, it explains why lineages that are started with really great leaders tend to regress and devolve and become bad. And I think like the Ottomans try to fight against this by basically having sultans. They have lots of kids, and the kids fight each other, and so the best kid stays on top. So the regression is slowing, but even that didn't stop it. And I think the best kind of system is not having this like one house, like just one dynasty being in charge of everything.
Yeah.
I think it should be more pragmatic. I believe the Roman system is kind of like that, where they have like this kind of like an electoral system in some sense, whereas it's not democratic. It's more like the nobles are selecting who should become like the next emperor kind of deal. And there's the idea of two emperors as well. So one of the critiques people have against the Christian Roman empires is that you didn't have two emperors. But as Romans had two emperors, actually they did have two emperors. Sim Basilius, the concept of the second emperor was actually existent in the Roman Empire. So that's not even in the Byzantine Empire, as people call it. So that's my take. I'm a lot more pragmatic. I think bloodlines can die and devolve. I think it's a lot more dynamic than just this idea of this one bloodline. Every person that bloodline is sacred and like they're nobles. No, I don't believe in that.
Yeah, I don't think the hereditary aspect to historic monarchy is like some kind of, to use some metaphysical jargon, I don't think it's part of the essence or the real definition or form of what a monarchy is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think what defines a monarchy is having a head, a primate leader of the country who represents and stands in for Christ, who's blessed by the church. I would say those things are the essential aspects of what a monarchy is. So I don't even think like a constitutional monarchy would necessarily be something opposed to a Orthodox concept of monarchy.
Well, I'm not really talking about constitutional monarchy. I'm more so
I know.
like,
I'm just throwing that into the mix.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm not promoting elective monarchy either, because Poland did that and that sucked.
Yeah.
Because you had foreign nobles becoming kings of Poland, and that totally did not work out.
Yeah, but I think when we look at this, we should understand the concept of monarchy. If we look biblically, the monarch in the Bible is David, and David is a Messiah, is anointed. You know, in that sense, he is also called a Christ, and that's why he's typological of Christ. And David is not chosen for a specific, magic bloodline. He's chosen for valor, and he's chosen for divine election, and ultimately this is divine election that matters. And that's what Paul's saying. Is saying, the king, even if he's a pagan, he's been put in place by forces that are above us, so let's pray for him. And ultimately, I don't like the idea of the word monarchy, because it really sounds like hereditary European style monarchy. If you look at the Byzantine Empire, what existed was autocracy. Oftentimes the emperor is called autocrator, the autocrat. And I think that's what we can respect, the fact that the power is there, and it has to be used properly. And in that sense, you can, people will say that Putin, in that sense, is a monarch. So there is this sense of having power, and then there is a sense of divine election. But magic bloodline like this, you're gonna get Habsburg. And Shining Diamond, thoughts on the future of monarchy in Europe. Thoughts on the future of Europe, maybe first, because that's to be the more
pressing. Yeah, that's true. Let me see. I guess we're done with this. Thoughts on wearing masks. Ever since here's short and simple. The fact that there are people protesting and rioting in the United States and they're not dying on the streets, to me, proves that we don't need masks. That's my take.
Yeah.
And if they care so much about this, they will close the borders before this thing even spread to this level. So
that's the thing that they gave it away, because they'll tell you oh no, you're gonna kill grandma if you don't wash your hands.
Do I believe that this doesn't exist? No, it probably does. There's probably a virus, definitely. But I mean, look at the BLM protesters. I mean, they're out there and they're doing all sorts of crazy things. They're also grouped up together.
Yeah,
and so that leads me to think, it's different than we thought. Basically, I'm not gonna pretend as if I had the full details, okay? But when I see that, I get some kind of an idea.
Yeah, I believe it was a bit overblown, for political reasons. And what's very funny that the mask thing with the protest, because there've been protests in France as well, and they say the same thing. They authorize a protest. So for a while, they've been telling you, wear your mask or you're gonna kill grandma. It's very important. You need to wash your hands every 20 minutes. You cannot be close to someone 1 meter, something like this. You cannot go to church, and they authorize riots, basically. They authorize protests. They authorize people being next to one another. So this just shows, it doesn't mean that the virus doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it is dangerous for some people. It just shows that the political interest comes first. And the fact that the BLM stuff was more beneficial for the political interest that propped up this virus than the virus itself.
So masks only protect other people from you. That's how they work. So you have the mask on your face, and it protects people from the droplets that you eject from your face.
Yeah.
So
this guy's a science guy, by the way. So listen to him.
So if only 2 people in a crowd are wearing a mask, it doesn't really matter.
And let's move on to this question. Would you recommend pursuing catechism and spiritual home at a Goric monastery like St. Anthony's against a small road? It depends. It really depends. I can't give you the answer. Check out my video on Orthodox Guide to Navigating Jurisdictions. I think that's the video. I respond to those questions there, it honestly just fully depends. Like, Rokor is canonical, Goark is canonical, so that's not the problem. The problem is which one is the best for you. So you should think of it that way.
It's more
So sometimes Goark can be better than Rokor, and I know you give an example of a monastery, but again, it depends. Monasteries generally will be better, but not all of them. Not all of them. There are bad people in monasteries. Monasteries are not full of amazing people, but they are full of great people, let's say. But monks are human beings just like us.
You'll get really heavy penances if you confess at St. Anthony's.
Yeah, and most other monasteries.
So, it depends whether or not you can tolerate months of penance or not.
And as I said, it really depends which one is better for you. So you have to try out both, and you have to see how it is.
You're lucky there are several jurisdictions present, but it's not a matter of jurisdiction. It's really on a parish to parish basis. In France, we've had people who had like really good experiences with Roko, really bad experiences with Roko, and vice versa. And every time you ask someone, they've got a different opinion.
Mm-hmm. And he was asking about whether violence is condoned, because were the Crusades justified? Were the times that God called for his chosen to lead campaigns to secure the physical Israel? There was in Old Testament, yes. In the present, could a nation be justified to invade? For the Crusades, no. For the others, yes. But maybe even then, in a legal sense, you could say it's justified, but not in a religious sense. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't know about religious sense per se, like holy war thing, but I'm not opposed to the first crusade. Let me just put it that way. I think it was
okay.
Okay, so we believe in the idea of just war, and the church can condone wars if they are, if the states are fighting this war, and it's a war to defend Christians or to I think sometimes it's been used to retake Christian land, basically. But the Crusades are something else, because it is a holy war. It is a war that purges you of sin. But even just wars, if you look at it from what the church fathers say, for example, Saint Basil says, you can be a soldier. Saint John the Baptist says the same thing. You can be a soldier, but if you kill someone, your hands are still stained. You still have blood on your hands, so you need to do some penance, which will be lighter. But for example, someone who kills someone during a war cannot ever be priest again, because he's stained. And that's the thing that during the Crusades, the fact that you have bishops and so on that are participating in it, that you have people using Pharisaic loopholes. Because I don't know if you're aware, but in Europe, bishops used to fight and kill people, but they would use blunt weapons to say that, we're not dropping any blood. I just crushed this guy's skull, but it wasn't with a blade, so it's fine. So in that sense, killing still incurs penalties, even though we can understand that it's possible. But the church can also reserve the right to forbid campaigns and oppose campaigns. That doesn't mean they're going to go against the state. That just means that it cannot be blessed. And that's what happened with Saint Ambrose of Milan and Emperor Theodosius. He couldn't enter the church after launching a campaign against heretics. No, the Crusades. We have a specific history regarding the Crusades, because it's been a bit backstabby. They were supposed to give back the lands, but originally the emperor called for it. But at the same time, the Holy Land has been Muslim for a while, and it was used by the Pope politically after the Battle of Manzikert and the Schism to gain influence over Constantinople. And we all know the story of the Fourth Crusade, so it's a bit complicated. But just war can exist. But war and killing people still is inherently bad. Also, we can understand that it can happen, basically.
Yeah. Anything more to add? I guess not. So So I want to add on the crusade stuff that I don't think there's a religiously sanctioned holy war kind of idea. I don't think that exists in um, Christianity, and I think this debate will depend on how we understand the Old Testament. I think with that will be what the debate depends. To my knowledge, what I think, and I'm willing to be completely wrong on this. So take this with a small grain of salt. This is just my personal opinion. Is that when I see that in the Old Testament, it is directly sanctioned by God, but I don't think it's in the same category as the concept of a crusade. I don't think it's the same thing as the concept of crusade. I think that's a entirely different thing. And I think it's ultimately representing spiritual warfare in a physical manifestation. Doesn't mean that it's merely symbolic, okay? I don't believe that these things really did happen, but there's a strong symbolical aspect to it. Moving on.
Well,
So
hang on, wait, hang on.
Oh, yeah.
The church didn't really sanction crusades for like 1,000 years of its existence until...
Exactly.
So it does seem to me like there's a bit of a discontinuity in that sense.
Yes.
I mean, crusades don't exist, but you have cases of just war. For example,
Yeah,
there were war, of course, for example, after...
But not something like the church is blessing war or
Exactly.
a holy
Exactly.
war.
Yeah.
Okay, after Cosroes the Great took Jerusalem and so on, we had the church was happy that the Roman Empire came back and saved the relics and stuff like this. And we also have historical accounts of wars that was approved by the church in order to take back the image of Edessa, the Holy Mandylion. So it's not a holy war; it's still a war, during which killing will incur penalties, canonical penalties. It's not a war that purges you of sin like a jihad or a crusade, but just war.
Exactly.
And of course, the concept of the crusade in the Roman Catholic sense is an innovation, but the idea is that war can be justified to an extent. It exists in the first millennium, though. Clearly.
Yeah. I'm not obviously attacking that idea. I support. Yeah, I'm just basically adding to the part. Like a lot of people they mistake the idea of war for holy purposes. They think that always means crusade. I don't think it means that. Like someone can have holy purposes. That doesn't mean that it's the same thing as Roman Catholic crusade. So Anelefteros Monarchikos asks, I just said the name to flex. Should a Christian with sodomite tendencies remain celibate even if he still likes opposite gender too? So basically, if he's a bisexual, I'm not a professional in that regard because I'm perfectly straight. So I don't want to insult Lewis. So do you have any experience from your friends that you can bring up? Because I don't think there's a should, but rather, what candidate. I think this is something that you should talk with your priest, really.
Yeah, this really doesn't belong on this channel.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not something that we can help you with because we don't have that knowledge. We don't have the tools for that.
That's a pastoral problem that's dealt.
Yeah,
exactly. That's something that your priest can deal with.
Anything that's about is between you and your confessor, and we're not clergy.
Jürgen says that the Pope would probably love a female priest. I don't believe that, but actually I want to say I don't think that's a good thing. And here's why I don't think that's a good thing. If that's going to happen to them, what's stopping them from pushing that on us? I mean, I think we kind of seen this kind of I'm seeing the stuff that they did to Roman Catholics. I'm seeing the stuff to us right now. And so in some sense, I mean, it's natural that the Vatican is going through crazy directions, but I don't think we should celebrate it fully. I think somewhat, but not fully. That's my take. So I don't believe that will happen. By the way,
we absolutely should not celebrate it.
Yeah.
Itself, because once that wall's broken,
like for example,
it's us next.
Let's say, if the Pope says abortion is completely fine, we shouldn't be celebrating that. I think.
Yeah. I think you're also underestimating the Tradcope because I do believe that it will happen. for example, in France recently, there's been a female theologian who said that I want to become the Archbishop of Lyon, the throne of Irenaeus. And so she said that. She was very public about it. And there's been the Pope didn't comment on this. So they stay silent. They're currently researching female priests, historically female
the deaconesses, yeah.
They are going to use this. I don't believe Francis is going to do it. I believe the next one is going to do it. They also had there were talks of female cardinals, because there is technically nothing that I'm not kidding you. There is technically nothing that forbids a female to be a cardinal, because a cardinal has been, it's instated later on. So they're trying to play a loophole. This is happening. And of course, there is the fact that they already have female Eucharistic minister, which by definition are, consecrating something, taking part in the sacrament in a sacramental sense to an extent. So this is going to be used. So don't worry, people who want to stay in their little, Thomistic box, or people who are just like, we got the keys. So even if you're driving straight through hell, it's not going to happen. Don't underestimate the trad curve, because it's been going on, and every time the Pope, they go a step further, and every time you got one new level of curve. And don't worry, you'll see in 10 years you will have the same trads that have been defending these positions. They will still follow the Pope and switch their position. So, but again, we should not celebrate this. And again, once a Catholic do it, it will be an argument for to push it on us, because we still have dialogue with them. So yeah, and also we should think about union. Obviously, I don't think union is going to happen, but we should still try to look for it. And every time we have an ecumenical meeting with the Pope, he literally gives up one of his ecumenical council. Chieti literally gives up Vatican I. Let's pray that the stuff in 2025 goes this way. But ultimately, it shouldn't be like the Anglicans. At some point we were very close to unite with the Anglicans, and bam, LGBT clergy and trans clergy, and now it's impossible. So
I want to add Snek. This is important because we were actually on route with establishing communion with the Anglicans, and when that was going to happen, there was a huge movement in Anglicanism pushing LGBT female priests and all that stuff. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, and
so it stopped.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and no, we cannot accept that and be in commune with that. So even though I don't believe that union is ever going to happen, not for dogmatic reason, because they will throw the dogma up the toilet for unity, but because of the saints mostly, and to some level because of the Pope. But we should still try to look for communion, to look for real union, with the Pope voting. And this will completely jeopardize everything. So we shouldn't celebrate this, but obviously that church, by definition, is they're not the real church, are going to be in decay. But if they're lost for good, which I believe to an extent they are, but we shouldn't celebrate that. That's very sad.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Davidson asks,
I'll do one more question and then we'll wrap up, yeah?
Yeah. Let's be a lot more quicker now. Do you guys believe in divine rights? In short, yes, the monarch, the king, is an icon of the Father. As a matter of fact, that's an argument I believe St. Basil the Great uses in order to argue why monarchy is better. He says the monarchy is Trinitarian, in fact. I addressed that in the History of Christian Theology video. Thoughts on multiple spoons? I have a video done on that topic. You can check my channel and find that. It's bad. It's unbiblical. It goes against Bible. So let's look for more. How compatible is empiricism with orthodoxy in the John Locke sense? Not at all. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's definitely not compatible. Let's see. People are chatting with each other. Does anyone know? Let me find it. Does anyone know if Snek has a channel? No, but he has a Twitter, and I'll put that in the description below.
I'm mostly doing stuff in French, but I don't know. Whenever I change computer, whenever of some hardware. I'll think about starting videos maybe.
Yep. And yeah, so this question, how about David and Snek say no, because our provider is Lewis. He provides me with stream power for me to be able to stream this. So he has to be on. Yeah, if he has to go, we have to go. That's the kind of the rule here. He's the bad guy, so
we can have Snek on next week. We can have Snek on next week, and I won't have commitments, and then we can just go on for ages if you want.
So,
if you like it that much, acrobatic Jesus.
Send him DMs, call him an evil person, insult him, and tell him that he looks like a bug man. Do that for. No, I'm just joking, of course.
Yeah,
that's why.
If the analytics are good, I'll try to be here as much as possible. If I can even become a fixture, I'll be open to it. It's great talking with you guys, and I'm available. I'm available next week. But yeah,
sure, cool. yeah, definitely. So that will end the stream. I'm happy. Compared to last stream, we had more viewers. I was kind of panicking because we really didn't have anything to talk about, but it just ended up being another Orthodox episode, which is
it always
fine.
Works out. It always works out.
Yeah, because this podcast, literally, we can talk about anything that we want. That YouTube allows us. That is. So that will be it. Thank you all for watching. Lewis is on Twitter. He is a fellow mod on JDar's Discord server, Orthodox Christian Discord. So you can find us there. We're mods there with Snek as well. Snek is also a mod. I have my own Discord, hashtag #PrestupGang. It's going to be all in the description below. And yeah, subscribe to my video, subscribe to my channel, watch my videos, shill for me, and tell everyone that that I'm the new king of the Ortho YouTube sphere. Of course, I have to say I'm joking because people actually take these jokes seriously nowadays. So, where can I find Lewis? You can find him on Twitter and Discord.
Yeah, Twitter, Discord, and I'm also with Orthodox Shahada. We're interviewing Dr. Bo Branson tomorrow, or I am anyway.
Oh, nice.
So I'll put an ad for that this evening.
That will be it. Thank you all. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Snek, for being here. Thank you all for watching this. I'll see you guys in the next video. God be with you all. Thank you.
See you guys.
See ya.
End broadcast. Clicked.